The paradox of traditional military defense is that it leads to its own undoing. It requires maintaining a strong offensive military. This same strength can then threaten rivals, which causes them to develop their own offensive military capabilities. They have to do this as a deterrence to the military capabilities that you build up in your nation. Then when your rivals develop their own offensive capabilities, this undermines your own defense. So becoming militarily stronger threatens your rivals. They respond by becoming militarily stronger themselves, and this undermines your own sense of defense and security. The effect of having a strong military is often to cause military buildups on both sides or all sides of a military rivalry. What usually results are arms races and military buildups. It then does not take much and is usually just a small accident to result in a war or a conflict. Military arms races and military buildups have often ended in war and mass death. So the traditional style of building up national defense capabilities threatens rivals. They respond by developing their own military offensive capabilities, and then both sides have very strong armies, and then it just takes a mistake or misunderstanding or miscalculation to produce a conflict that ends in war and mass casualties. Traditional national defense doctrines are inherently unstable and increase the odds of conflict, even though they're designed to prevent conflict. Because the world is not a vacuum, and when your rivals see you getting stronger, they respond by making themselves stronger. And then everybody has big militaries. Having a very strong military requires not giving resources to other areas of society and other sectors of the economy. So a country can have an extremely strong military, but its people will not have health care, it will have a very expensive or poor education system, its infrastructure might be crumbling. Diverting resources to the military may make the country very strong, and no other country will think of attacking it, so the country will be secure, but the well-being of its citizens will suffer in the long term. Even if war is avoided, having a large military requires constantly replacing the hardware as it becomes outdated. It requires constantly training people for military activities that could be trained for other more productive economic activities. The resources that go into building military equipment and infrastructure are resources that are no longer available for other activities in the economy. Having a large military means that resources and people's time is dedicated to national defense and not improving the living conditions of the people or developing infrastructure to provide for the economy and the well-being of citizens. In the long run, having large militaries and dedicating large amounts of resources to the military means that the country will gradually fall behind in other areas of the economy. It means that the country will lose its standing in the world because it will no longer be doing much else besides the military. Technological innovation outside of military applications will suffer, and if the country is not able to look after its citizens, the legitimacy of the entire regime suffers, and people are no longer going to want to support the country or the regime itself. Citizens will begin to opt out and undermine the cohesiveness that is necessary to maintain a strong society. Dedicating a lot of resources, time, and effort to staying militarily strong means that all other areas of the economy are not getting the attention and resources that they otherwise might be. So there are massive opportunity costs to having a strong military, and this is only one of many problems with having a large military. The other way that having a large military undermines national security is that it takes resources away from other sectors of the economy. The overall economy will be less innovative in almost every other sector that's not connected to the military. This will result in the security of the nation being undermined because it will fall behind in every other dimension that matters to the citizens of the country. So while the country may be militarily protected and defended, it will, in the long run, fall behind other rival countries that do not dedicate as much resources and time to their militaries. Maintaining a large military takes resources away from other economic activities. This reduces both long-term economic growth and the resources available for public goods such as education and healthcare. Undermining the health and education of the citizens in a society gradually reduces their capacity for productivity and inventiveness. This slows technological development in the society and reduces productive capacity over the long term. Countries that invest too much in military forego opportunities in other sectors. Countries that invest more in their citizens are better at growing their economic capacity and advancing their technology. When these two types of countries are put in competition with one another outside of war, the country that dedicates more resources to improving its citizens and its productive capacity and the innovation of its citizens is going to win in the long term, whereas the country that dedicates too many resources to the military will gradually fall behind. Now, moving on to another reason that maintaining military strength is bad. Military strength provides power, but power corrupts. Power is an addictive thing, and people are driven to maintain being in power at all costs. People in power become self-righteous and hypocritically engage in moral exceptionalism. Having power decreases empathy and compassion towards others. Power hinders cooperation, and it prevents taking the perspectives of others, especially those perceived as being less powerful. So having power promotes unethical behavior. It promotes a sense of entitlement. Power also leads to selective information processing and judgment biases. Having power leads to overconfidence. It increases the likelihood of disinhibited behavior, which means you don't hold yourself back or question yourself. Power increases aggressive and dehumanizing behavior. When a country thinks itself powerful, its decision makers are affected by all of these psychological forces. They feel powerful and they act as if they have power because their country is powerful. The longer a country is powerful, measured in generations, the more these effects become evident in each successive generation. Each generation tends to make worse quality decisions more often because they are deluded by power and they've grown up in an environment surrounded by people who are affected by this sense of power and the effects of being powerful. The leaders of powerful nations gradually become less respectful when dealing with other countries. When this is combined with frequent belligerent national actions and aggressive overseas foreign policy, this makes allies less committed to the country. It makes countries once neutral become negative in their attitude towards the country. And countries that are negative start to become even aggressive towards the country. A country that has been powerful for too long starts to behave very poorly on the international stage. And other countries respond to this poor behavior. It can take generations for this to take place, but the pattern is repeated through history so many times. Empires rise, become belligerent, aggressive, entitled, and then the other nations take notice of this changed behavior, and then other countries want to undermine that empire. Maintaining a large military means no one will attack you, which means you can probably achieve peace. But the longer a country maintains peace, the more likely that each generation questions the necessity of maintaining the large military that achieved the peace in the first place. So leaders are eventually faced with the dilemma of justifying why we keep spending so many resources on maintaining a large military during such a long extended period of peace. These justifications often take the form of stoking fears of rivals or external threats and getting involved in overseas conflicts. This then undermines the very peace that people want. And then getting involved in conflicts requires dedicating even more resources to military operations, which could have gone to other economic activities. Countries that maintain a large military often end up using it. If they don't, citizens tend to question why we are spending so much resources keeping this military going. Vested interests that help maintain the military's existence will find excuses to use the military. This then undermines the peace that people enjoyed, and it creates a reason for the military to get used. Maintaining a large military takes resources away from other sectors of the economy, but getting into war takes even more resources away from the rest of the economy. So maintaining a large military tends to be a lose-lose situation. You lose because you have to spend all these resources to maintain the large military. And then if the military gets used, you lose even more resources to being in a war. The challenge is to ensure national security without threatening potential rivals, suffering economically by getting caught up in competitive military buildups, and getting corrupted by the effects of being a militarily powerful nation. The solutions outlined here in this series work together to make nations more peaceful and secure for the long term. This includes requiring compulsory referendums to deploy military forces externally. It includes maintaining a small professional military that provides compulsory military training to all citizens. And since all citizens have military training and could be called upon to fight, they would be less likely to vote in a referendum for aggressive military actions because it would be their lives on the line. Since there would be no large standing army, leaders and the population would not be corrupted by feeling powerful. The country would be less likely to act belligerently and disrespectfully towards other countries. Resources would also not get tied up in building and stockpiling large amounts of military equipment, which leaves it to be freed up for other economic activities. But if the nation is ever attacked, every citizen is trained and can come to its defense. So security is ensured without maintaining a large standing military. Another solution is to only make alliances with nations that also require the same referendum to deploy externally. This avoids getting dragged into conflicts by more aggressive or reckless allies that don't have this check on the need for aggressive actions. An additional solution is to focus on maintaining modern military production facilities rather than maintaining stockpiles of modern military equipment. This helps to avoid military buildups and allows the country to redirect resources. Military equipment becomes obsolete very quickly and needs to be replaced every few decades. These solutions will work together to help nations thrive securely while avoiding the waste and corruption that comes with becoming a powerful military nation and antagonizing potential rivals. It's a conception of national defense that takes people's needs into account, and most people just want to live their lives, and that's true in every country, and we have to recognize that.